New York.
Apple.
Hot dogs.
Dollar.
Hollywood.
Democracy.
Freedom.
Rock and roll. Wall Street.
Statue of Liberty.
Los Angeles, California.
McDonald's.
Jeans.
Bubblegum. Video games. Nintendo.
What's so great about America?
Every Saturday night, 7 to 9 p.m., explore American culture and language.
With Master Steve,
Ina MK,
And HazvaQT.
tune in to find out about what makes America so great.
The Great American Weekend. Listen exclusively on Radio Van 103.1.
Also, watch us on the Radio Von Facebook page, website, and mobile app. Welcome to the Great American Weekend here on Radio Von. I am Master Steve. I've got Ina MK over there.
And we've got back.
Guess who do I have
HazvaQT is back in
before
the house.
me?
HazvaQT is back in the house.
Welcome back.
You are no longer ill, but you are still illin'.
I'm illin', chillin' like a villain, and I'm hoping to be $1 million billin' very soon.
I like that. Still, poetry is always welcomed.
A little
here.
bit of a little bit of free verse there.
With or without an appendix.
Yeah.
Appendixless.
Yes.
Aramast.
Sans appendix, as they would say in French.
So how do you feel now?
Oh man, I feel like a new man. I've just completely changed. You know, I think when you spend 4 days behind white walls at a hospital, you have a small window into the future death that you might experience. And I have a fire lit in me that's a little different than before. So it remains to be seen what will come out of it. I hope our audience can feel the new spirit,
the new vibe.
QT.
The reconnected spirit, perhaps even reconnected to our own roots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that segue.
You spent a few days in the hospital this week. I had a much better experience.
You had
I spent a few days out of the country.
Venture.
I just flew in from the Netherlands this morning, and man, are my arms tired.
From the Netherlands straight
from all
into
the marijuana.
Our arms.
You guys aren't even going to acknowledge like the worst joke ever, right?
Wait, Netherlands.
I just flew in, and man, are my arms tired. That is one of the lamest jokes.
Oh boy!
That Americans
Did you flap
can tell.
all the way here, Steve?
Yeah, and it's a groaner, right? It's one of those that you can't ignore it because it's so bad.
What
and
a knee slapper!
You can't laugh because it's not funny.
No.
So it's it's a groaner.
But we can forgive you.
It's a.
It's okay, Steven.
We can forgive you for it.
You've been away from home, so you kind of changed as well, and you need some time to.
I changed my
back.
clothes. Spending 14 hours on an airplane, you got to change your clothes. Yeah.
So tell us a bit about your experience.
So I got into a cab at the airport, into a taxi, and it started kind of the same way it always does, pretty much with every taxi that I get into here. Oh, where are you from? And this time it's I'm at the airport, so it's, oh, are you a tourist? Like, no, I'm not a tourist. I live here. Oh, well, where are you from? I'm from America. Oh, so you're an American Armenian? No, I'm not Armenian. Like, oh, so you're American? I'm like, yeah, I'm just American. And of course, they're always waiting, like,
just American.
because here, what's the term here? Yeah, it's.
What's your nationality?
Yeah, what's your nationality? And it's just like
your origin.
Yeah, what's your nationality? But for us Americans, nationality is like the same as citizenship.
True.
Right.
So, but here with the Armenian language and stuff, it's different. So they want to know. Well, American isn't a nationality; it's a citizenship.
Do they tell you that?
Oh yeah, I've been told that. No, okay. You're not American. That's not a nationality.
That's not the full answer.
Yeah,
it's in a sense, there's some credence to that because as if you were a true American, we would be a Native American. So Iroquois, Apache, Cherokee, there would be these different tribes that you'd be from.
I don't know about that so much.
If we're talking about roots.
Kind of. But then, if you were I wouldn't necessarily want to go that far back, but anyway. So the cabbie this time had a really good one. He's like, so you're Makur American, right? You're clean American, only American.
Makur American speaking Armenian on air. Right.
And he and I said, yeah. And he thinks for a second, and this was great. He's so like they were there, meaning like my ancestors, they were there with George Washington. Like, well, no, not really. Not that far back, but like 150 years ago.
He probably wanted to show his knowledge of American
I was impressed.
history.
I was impressed.
So he came in the Mayflower.
We came in the Mayflower. No, we didn't come in the Mayflower. About 150 years ago, depending on which side of my family. And I said, no, about 150 years ago, and he just let it go. And I usually resist saying, oh, I'm Italian, because that's what they always wanted to know. Like, I'm Italian, because I'm Italian. I'm half Italian American and basically half Dutch American.
Then you have to tell the whole story.
But then the thing is, no, it's not. Then it's always, oh, so you speak Italian and you know people who live in Italy? No. Oh, you speak Dutch? You know people that live in the Netherlands? No.
I told you I'm American. I don't speak any other language. I barely even know other nations around outside of the United States and North America.
No. When I was in college, I learned Italian, and I studied there for a semester in college. So at one point I knew Italian. I've forgotten most of it. And then the funny thing is, I went back to Minneapolis and hung out with my grandfather, who was born in America, but his parents were from Italy. And he's like, oh, so you speak Italian now? And he starts speaking Italian to me, and I'm looking at him like, I kind of understand that. But it was a really strange dialect, because they left back probably in 1908, before radio and before television in Italy. And it was radio and television that really kind of unified the Italian language in terms of spoken. So, there were all sorts of different dialects. And then, of course, he grew up and learned Italian living in Northeast Minneapolis. And so he was speaking something else as well. I mean, not just Italian dialect from the mountains in central Italy, but there were other things mixed in there too. So it was a weird Italian.
If we think of it from what you guys just said, to be American means, okay, to have certain roots, but not necessarily speaking the languages that you have, of those roots that you carry.
Yeah, I mean, for Armenians,
speaking English, okay.
Yeah, because we talked a little bit about this last week. What does it mean to be Armenian? Right. And one of the things is to be Armenian Orthodox, to be Christian, or to speak the language. Those are some pretty kind of essential things, depending on who you ask, right? But to be an Italian American means that you've got an Italian last name and you like Italian food. But everybody likes Italian food, so whatever.
Well, it's interesting how the cultural identities and our association with roots kind of overstep the first, like the human being quality of first identity, as in like the first threshold of identity is I'm a man or a woman or a human being. And then after that associative link with what culture or what family roots that we have, or with how we associate with our nationality or our national identity. And there's often that skip of that first step. Well, like first I'm a man, or first I'm a woman, and then
I'm a human.
Yeah, a human.
I disagree with you there. I think your time and place that you're from is essentially more important than you just being a human.
Speaking of time, we need to go on an advertisement break.
Sounds good to me.
And we'll be back.
And we'll be back to find out who is who in the studio tonight.
We'll be talking about roots and ethnic and cultural heritage tonight.
So stay tuned. This is the Great American Weekend.
Come and hang with us every weekend. It'll be a blast.
A blast?
Yeah, a good time.
No, come chill with us. It'll be cool.
Chill?
Yeah, relax, hang out.
Come choose the fat with us.
Yuck! No way! Join us
on the Great American Weekend, where we'll help you decode American slang.
And we're back live on the radio with Ina MK and
HazvaQT.
and with Master Steve. We're here talking about roots, y'all. And it's interesting to talk to speak about this subject because a lot of our identity is shaped with what we associate our historical background to be or our national identity to be, and even the language we speak. I was having a walk with a good friend the other morning, and we were speaking about even just an accent can change the way that you understand someone, or you get a sense for the culture from which way they come. So even in the English accent, if I were to speak with you in a Scottish accent, which is pretty bad, or if I'm talking to you in a New York accent, or if I'm talking to you from down south, there are all these reflections of what that root might actually come from that reflects inside of that accent. So
well, yeah, to a certain extent, it's the stereotypes that come with those sorts of people.
We've got the same stuff. People come
HR.
We've got the same thing from different regions. So different regions have certain accents, and Armenian accents also have the diaspora representatives.
It's true that there's diasporan accents, even from different diasporas from all over the world. Even in the country, there's a Gyumri accent, there's an Artsakh accent.
Right.
There are
Sunik, Goris.
I was just in the Netherlands over the weekend, and I heard all sorts of accents. You could tell who the Dutch people were speaking English. You could tell who the Brits were, and there are a bunch of different British accents. And then I got a chance, and I'll hopefully be able to talk a little bit more about this at the end or towards the end of the show, but I was able to meet some distant relatives of mine, and they had these guys, an older generation than me, but they had I swear it's the exact accent that my grandfather had, who died back in 91. So they started, I met them. I'd never met them before. Well, one of them I had met briefly years ago, but I barely remember it. But I met him, and he started speaking, and I was just like, you sound like my grandfather. Yeah. And I was like, wow, so my grandfather really had a Dutch accent, but it's not quite that simple. But hopefully I'll be able to talk about that a little bit more later. Yeah, so, I mean, you were saying before, Hazva, about, we're human, right? We're human first. I don't think so, because I think human is kind of an empty category. It's so general and wide in its definition that I don't think it really has any content. To a certain extent, also like American, because American is
very empty, doesn't have any content whatsoever. Seriously,
I mean, in terms of tradition.
I'm so glad that you said that, Steve.
In terms of things that we typically think of as culture, like food and traditions and religion, music. I mean, there is no one source
True. That's
for American culture. So I think these hyphenated nationalities in the U.S., Italian American, Dutch American, African American, are, I think, descriptive and interesting, and it does, in a lot of senses, tell you something about those people
and all the names that they have for different people from different countries.
We were looking at
Gringo.
And we got to be careful with that. We were looking at the Wikipedia article. They have a Wikipedia article of slang terms, or actually, and most of them are derogatory slang terms for different ethnicities.
My favorite pastime.
So I mean, like being Italian American, we've got WAP and Dago and Guinea and Olive Oil Boys.
Olive Oil Boys, that's a new one. I haven't heard that.
You haven't heard that?
I've heard the grease. There's a grease one. What is it? Grease ball? Did you say that
grease
one?
ball. No, I didn't. But Olive Oil Boys, it's the same thing. You put the olive oil in your hair to slick it back. You got the greasy fancy hair.
And you got the slick back hair too. Look at that.
Yeah.
Do you guys know what Armenians are called in Russia?
in
Oh
Russia?
yes,
I don't
I've
know.
heard this.
Chach.
Chach or chacho or chachik.
Which means Chach means a cross,
Cross.
and also is a name Chachik.
Yeah, Hachatur,
And it's
which is like Christian.
yeah,
right?
but
Yeah.
it's considered to be offensive. So
Yeah. So
In America, I mean, like, I feel like Armenians are kind of not really that present to the extent where there would be a cultural slang. But what I have heard is within the Armenian community, Armo.
but
What do you
that's on the
mean they're
list.
not
That's on the
present?
Wikipedia list.
It is?
It is.
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
I found it. on
Aramas,
there.
they're everywhere. What do you mean they're
Yeah.
not present?
And for Dutch
Well, in
Americans,
LA, yeah.
For
In New
Dutch
York.
Americans, they had cheesehead, which I'm like, what?
I'm sorry to laugh, but that's great.
We,
That is great.
That's what Minnesotans call people from Wisconsin. We call them cheeseheads.
Hey, homies, we need to go on a break, and then we're gonna have a song, No Roots by Alice Merton. Stay tuned. This is the Great American Weekend, and we'll be back.
Hey, Steve, do you like Chash Harisan Spas?
Yeah, I love them. But what would you call them in English?
Yeah, I'd call them cowfoot stew, chicken porridge, and sour yogurt soup.
Sorry I asked.
The Great American Weekend.
And we're back in our studio talking about roots. And
The Great American Weekend on Radio Vaughn.
103.1. And for those of you who don't have an access to the frequency, you can watch us right here, right now on www.radiovon.fm and also our official Facebook page, Radio Von FM 103.1. So, roots. And I've got some quotes, as always,
Yeah.
to share with our listeners. I liked some of them, which were really, really interesting. So let's go. Marcus Garvey. As always, yeah, let's go. A people without the knowledge of their past history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots.
And what happens to a tree without roots? It flies.
Yeah.
It becomes a bird. No, it's
Or is it like a raisin in the sun? Does it? Oh no, what was that Langston Hughes quote? That's
It
like,
does
fly-
it explode?
does it explode?
No,
Or does it
falls
explode?
over and dies.
Falls over and dies.
It flies to Amsterdam.
To Amsterdam.
It falls over and dies.
Okay, another one.
Next.
Let's start with the church. As you know, it's my background. It's a natural setting of me, and it's definitely my roots. Aretha Franklin.
Yeah, talking about her music, the R&B roots in gospel music and church. Yeah.
Another one. Roots are not in landscape or a country or a people. They are inside you. Isabel Allende.
Isabella
Allende,
Allende. Yeah,
yeah.
Latin American writer. Yeah, and
So
that's
that's another point of view for people.
well,
who,
yeah, but what does that mean? I mean, they're not. What does it say? It says they're not.
They're not in a country or a landscape. They are inside you. So maybe having roots is about being yourself or who you feel you are,
I don't
and
know.
not
It's.
not being attached to certain people or landscape or country.
I don't know. It depends. I mean, I haven't read enough Allende to really know where she's probably going with this, but it could be read two ways. It could be, yeah, like, you know, a people, a place, a landscape. Doesn't matter. Your roots are who you are. Like, you make yourself, almost like this, you know, Jean-Paul Sartrean, Jean-Paul Sartre, his existentialism. You create yourself out of nothing.
It's relevant to the next quote. Can I read the
Or-
next quote?
Yeah,
But
sure.
I think I want to read it more as it's not those things. It's not, even if you don't know the place, the people, whatever, it's in you.
The call of
it may
blood.
come from there, and you may not even know it or acknowledge it, but those things are in you.
It's somewhere underconsciously
Yeah.
inside of you.
It's
Yeah, go ahead.
unconscious inside of you. Yeah, the next one.
Aramas?
Next.
So when you say that it's inside of you, this next quote has something that rings true to that. It's very relevant to what Steve was just saying. you can't hate the roots of a tree and not hate the tree. Similarly, you can't hate your country and not hate yourself, which is a really interesting way to look at how we take part in the fabric of our society and the roots connected to the entirety of this living organism that we kind of share, whether it be a nation, the US or Armenia or the globe. Everything is connected. So there's this, I like that quote. I have no idea who said it, but
it's anonymous.
I really like that quote.
Well, and that's the kind of quote that brings to mind the dangers of the sort of history that's been very popular in the U.S. for the last decade or so. You know, Howard Zinn's A People's History of the United States, the sort of revisionist history that goes back and really tries to pick apart all of the things that we've done wrong, all of the sins of America. And if you look at your history that way, then you start to hate your country and you start to hate yourself. Mm-hmm. You're consumed with guilt, and then where do you go from there? Yeah,
it's no different than in Armenia as well. I know that in Armenia there's an equivalency with being hypercritical and intellectualism,
mm-hmm.
and I think that being hypercritical is almost paramount to hatred of the nation and the way that it functions. Even if you might be discontent, you could be constructively critical. And I think that equivalency with intellectualism is kind of taking away from the possibilities that might be before us. So,
absolutely agree. That's a good point. And the last one, I'd like to read it out. So, storms make the oak grow deeper roots. George Herbert. So when I read this one, I thought about Armenia, just like you mentioned before, and our history and what our country and our nation went throughout the history. And I thought maybe this is what makes our people to keep their identity, to fight for it, to fight for their place under the sun. And this is what made Armenian people survivors in any situation.
Well, yeah, and there's especially from 100 years ago, there's a lot of that sort of sentiment in politics and in philosophy. I mean, starting with Nietzsche in the mid 1800s and moving through, and then with my favorite American president, Teddy Roosevelt. This idea that struggle is what makes you grow.
Mm-hmm.
Adversity. Nietzsche has a quote, something about, I've suffered so much throughout my life, and I wish the same upon all of the people that I love, because it's only through that struggling and suffering that I've made a better person out of myself, and I've made all of my great accomplishments. So if I wished the people that I love a peaceful, nice, easy life, I would actually be cursing them with being complacent and with not accomplishing anything.
Right.
But that's a sentiment that's kind of foreign to us today, isn't it?
Well, I agree with that point, because it's not only for nations, but also for any individual. When you don't go through suffering, you don't grow, and you don't actually value what you have. And also, nothing, like there is a saying, the best things are always received through some suffering.
Yeah, and speaking of suffering, we're going to put our audience out of their suffering for, about 5 minutes? We've got another song for them to listen to?
So
you'll get a little bit of a reprieve from our voices, and you get to listen to some sweet tunes.
It's a song by Pink, Family Portrait, and it's related to the theme of our show. So enjoy it. We'll be back shortly.
Hey, what kind of fixins do you like on your hot dog?
Fixins?
Yeah, relish, onions, mustard, ketchup, condiments.
No, not that.
Oh, fixins. I love chili dogs.
Learn about American cuisine on the Great American Weekend.
And we're back live on the Great American Weekend. I'm here with Ina MK and Master Steve.
And HazvaQT, who's gonna bring us in with some interesting news. Or maybe
We got the
Steven.
news.
We got the news. So let's go right into it, y'all. Again, y'all.
Y'all.
So I don't know if you guys heard about this, but the U.S. wants to put astronauts back on the moon because they got jealous of China already doing that.
They didn't put people there. They just put a probe there on the dark side.
Well, I mean, they went back to the moon. So I feel like
dark side.
we're reliving 1960s all over again.
Space race. Space race all over
Space Race
again.
2.0, the updated version. So it really is. Apparently, plans to put U.S. astronauts on the moon by the late 2020s weren't ambitious enough. Vice President Mike Pence announced that the National Space Council that the U.S. now planned to return to the moon by 2024, and about 4 years earlier than expected. He argued that the U.S. must remain first in space this century for the sake of the economy, national security, and writing the rules and values of space by establishing a more permanent presence. Now, I'm really curious about what it is that is so important for us, from people of planet Earth, to start already colonizing other planetary, orbiting.
You have been outside lately?
Have I been outside? Yeah, right.
Look at this planet.
Why do we have to
look what?
Why do we have to consume
have
and then throw away everything? I don't understand that. That's not like an American thing.
Well,
too,
if we
right?
just threw it away first, that would be even more wasteful.
Right. True. Let's just use it up. So
I've got one request with this whole thing. You're sending people back to the moon. There's got to be somebody named Alice going.
Yeah, it's like to the moon, Alice.
To the moon, Alice.
Oh. HR?
The Honeymooners.
HR.
The great black and white TV show, The Honeymooners. To the moon, Alice.
So there's one main problem with the plans. It's not clear where the money is going to come from to make this happen. So even though there's a budget for 2020 and it increased NASA's funding slightly to $21 billion, astrophysicist Katie Mack noted that it would represent a much smaller fraction of the federal budget than the Apollo program represented in the 1960s. While the federal budget has clearly grown over the decades, so have the cost of space travel. So the government may need to spend a lot more to make its target.
But I do believe the moon has gotten a little bit closer, so it might be cheaper to get there.
Yeah. I don't understand why they just don't tie a rope.
It's a really good, short film, Pixar, right? Pixar.
Yeah.
Really good short film about that. Just go up to the moon but never mind.
Making the moon closer. Okay. What's next, boys?
Roping the moon. Yeah. So I have our
I've
weekly.
got the whole world in my hands.
I don't want the world. I want the moon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Obsessed
You're so
with the
modern.
moon. I'm obsessed with the moon.
Give me the fortune, keep the fame.
Yeah. The Mueller report, of course, I mentioned this last week, but we had no idea what was going on with it.
Total exoneration.
We thank you, Mr. Hyperbole. You're almost as good at hyperbole as Trump is. Almost.
Total exoneration. I've been completely vindicated of every single one of what the fake news media has been telling people. He sounds like a mafioso when he speaks.
No,
If he had a little bit of an Italian accent, Donald Trump would sound like he was a mob boss. I'm sorry to interrupt. Let's continue with that.
We love these interruptions.
I really don't have much to say because we really don't know that much. Like when I talked last week, we knew nothing except that it was done, and Barr, the Attorney General, which the Attorney General is like the equivalent of the Minister of Justice here, right?
Yeah.
He had it. We didn't even know how long it was. We knew nothing. So I think it was on Sunday, we got from Barr, his office, we got a 4-page summary.
2-page.
No, 4. No, it was 4.
It 4?
I read all 4.
Oh, nice.
I mean, almost a full page of it was just the greetings and addresses and
sure.
this person and that person kind of junk. So probably 3.5 pages of actual content summarizing a 400-page report. 4 pages.
It was 350.
Oh, it was almost 4. I heard it was almost 400. No collusion. The Trump campaign didn't collude with Russia. No further charges. So all the people that have been charged with crimes out of this investigation are all the people that are going to be charged with crimes. And there were no charges over obstruction of justice. But now the report doesn't exonerate him. It just says that it's a complex issue, and we don't know a few things, and probably the biggest thing was we don't know intent. And intent is key when it comes to obstruction of justice. So Mueller just basically said, we don't have enough to charge him, and it's kind of a gray matter.
But it's what Bill Barr said, Mueller said.
No, there was an actual direct quote from the Mueller report. Okay, and that's all we have now.
So I'm not the only one who has quotes. Okay?
Yeah, Barr now has said sometime in mid-April he'll release the entire report, but it will have to be redacted, and that's standard. No, that's standard justice procedure.
I'm not laughing at the procedure. I'm laughing at the idea of seeing. I'm laughing at the idea of seeing a redacted document that's like all black except for like few statements.
The actual law for the special counsel says things like you people that are not charged don't have to be named. So you know they don't want to defame people that were investigated, but there wasn't enough evidence to charge them. So that sort of stuff will be taken out. Details that don't lead to charges might have to be taken out to, again, not defame people that are not going to be charged with a crime. And any grand jury information might have to be taken out. So this is fairly...
So everything is taken out.
Not everything, but it'll be fairly... legal and by the book in terms of what is redacted, or that's what he said so far. And people are getting kind of up in arms. Oh, well, they're not going to release the whole thing without any edits, but that's not the way that this usually goes. Yeah. I mean, it's just like if you have a grand jury hearing and the grand jury decides not to bring charges against somebody, those grand jury proceedings are sealed.
Yeah.
And no one gets to see them in the public.
Right.
Because you don't want to, again, defame someone, drag somebody's name through the mud who isn't actually going to be charged with a crime. So as things roll, sometime late April, we'll maybe have a little bit more information about the Mueller investigation.
The one thing that I found interesting about that news tip was, although he didn't charge Donald Trump, Mueller did forward the document to other governmental bodies or other councils for further information, for further investigation. So it was actually forwarded to other governmental institutions. Not the full report, but some of the evidence.
Right. Like there are still investigations going on related to stuff that he uncovered, not having to do with collusion and not having to do with obstruction of justice. But Cohen, there were some more things that were being investigated that Cohen was involved with. So there are some other investigations still going on, but none of it lies at the heart of what the investigation, Mueller's investigation, was about, and none of it directly involves Trump in any sort of major charges. There might be
Russia.
Yeah, and Russia. And Russia.
Russia.
And Russians, they want to steal our cars from out of our garages.
Listen,
we told you from beginning, there is no PP tape. If there was PP tape, we would have much more puppeteering going on. Unfortunately, this is basically all of your own doing. Look at you, America.
Aramat, can you please announce the advertisement break with this same accent?
Oh, absolutely. Please,
thank you.
Please,
but not right.
Please.
No, we don't have to go to advertisements yet, do we?
Yes, we do.
Oh.
Please, everybody, stay tuned because we are going to a commercial break, and we will be back soon. This is the Great American Weekend.
Thank you, Aramat. Stay tuned. We'll be back.
Thank you very much.
We'll be back soon.
Վարչապետ Նիկոլ Փաշինյանը հեռախոսազրույց է ունեցել Ղազախստանի նախագահ Նուրսուլթան Նազարբաևի հետ.
Oh, could they just speak a little bit slower?
Don't worry. You can catch local news, events, and culture in English every Saturday on Great American Weekend.
And welcome back to the Great American Weekend here on Radio Vaughn. We're
And
going
we
to
would like to
continue.
remind you that you can write your comments and ask your questions right under the
Yeah, if
live
you're watching us
video.
on Facebook Live or on the Radio Von website right now, you can put comments there and we'll give you a nod of acknowledgement. And if you're watching or listening later through the Radio Von website, you can leave comments on the YouTube page. If you're watching us Monday or
comments
later in the
anywhere.
week. Comments. We want
Is
to
there
know.
anybody out there?
We want to know what you're thinking. Tell us what's on your mind. And
She wants to
continuing,
fly to the moon.
continuing, Alice. To the moon, Alice. If you have never watched The Honeymooners with Jackie Gleason,
To the moon, Alice.
do yourself a favor
To the moon.
and check some of it out. It's classic American television.
It's pretty classic, yeah. Many
yeah.
references.
Oh yeah. So
So,
on
speaking
with the
of
news.
moon and the earth, today we're gonna have all lights turned off. So this is gonna happen at 8:30 p.m. So
We're gonna
it's,
have all lights turned off. What does that mean?
in 35 minutes, we're gonna have all the street lights off. This is an initiative. The light of the main streets and external lighting of buildings in capital Yerevan will be switched off from 8:30 to 9:30 for one entire hour. No lights.
But why?
To show support for stopping climate change.
By saving energy.
Yeah, the event in Yerevan is organized by WWF Armenia, World Wildlife Fund.
So does that mean that we're going to shut everything down here in the studio? And if people want to hear us continue the show, they're going to have to come in and sit on the couch?
Master
Well, that
Steve,
would be cool.
you know we're
Actually.
not green, Steve. Come on.
We're red. Okay, and the municipality urges all to join the global initiative. The Earth Hour began in Sydney in 2007 when 2 million people switched off their lights to show their support for a decisive action on climate change. Year by year, the event is getting bigger and bigger, and more countries and more people are joining this event around the world.
Nice. It's a good show
So
of
get
support.
ready for lights off. Some people will get a little nostalgic for the sweet 90s. Well, dark 90s. But actually, you know, guys, for my generation, well, for my parents, it was horrible, but the dark years without lights, we had fun because all the neighbors were coming over and we were playing with each other. We were running around not to get cold.
Yeah.
We were making stuff on the stove and it was cool.
Community bonding through suffering.
Right. There you go.
Suffering makes us stronger.
Stronger and united. This is one of the specific features of Armenian people.
I'll play rock paper scissors with you to see who does the next news story.
Okay, ready, go.
There
Rock,
you go.
paper, scissors. Oh, wait.
Oh,
you do
okay.
it 3.
Wait, 1,
Rock, paper,
2, 3.
scissors, shoot.
One of us does it.
He got scissors, I got paper. Snip, snip.
Snip, snip. So we've got some Armenian American news, U.S. and Armenian news. So there, I don't know if you guys heard about this, but just 2 days ago, over 35 members of Congress called for a $100 million U.S. aid package for both Artsakh and Armenia. Apparently, more than 35 representatives on Wednesday joined the Congressional Armenian Caucus co-chair Frank Pallone, a Democrat from New Jersey, in calling upon Chairwoman Nita Lowy, Democrat from New York, and Ranking Member Hal Rogers of the House of Appropriations Subcommittee on State Foreign Operations to back a $100 million fiscal year 2020 aid package for Artsakh and Armenia. The dollar amounts and the policy priorities requested by the Armenian Caucus, which annually spearheads bipartisan efforts to secure support for Armenian-related aid appropriations, are as follows. For Artsakh, $6 million to complete demining and rehabilitation services for the disabled, $4 million to promote peace via the Royce-Engel proposals, including placement of OSCE-monitored advanced gunfire locator systems, In Armenia, a $60 million in economic aid, $10 million in military aid, and $20 million to help Armenia serve as a safe haven for Middle East refugees. And the request from the caucus also was to suspend all U.S. military assistance to Azerbaijan and to strengthen Section 907 of the Freedom Support Act. So we've got the U.S. government proposal out for the U.S. government to increase aid to Armenia and to Artsakh. One of the stipulations was that the request was to allow for greater freedom of transport and communication with Artsakh, which currently is forbidden for both official and non-official United States organizations. So that would be huge if that were to pass. So hopefully those things pan out.
Yeah, that sounds like
That's a great news.
Yeah, that sounds like a good development.
And speaking of comments, people didn't make us wait. We've got some. So Zarmine Pogosyan writes in Armenian, but I can translate. So she says that she's very proud of Aramast being a part of our show. And
thank you, Zarmine Horkur.
And we're all blessed with Aramast. So thank you.
Love you.
Hello, Zarmine. And Lily Tovsepian says, hello, I'm here. Yes, I can now. This was the answer to your question, I guess.
My
Steven.
quote from Pink
Irene.
Floyd.
Oh, Irene is with us. Irene, we missed you. Comfortably numb.
Exactly.
She says.
No, it's the song "Comfortably Numb," the Pink Floyd song that I quoted from. Hello.
Yeah.
Is there anybody
because this was a coincidence because, answering Lily Tovsepian's question for almost 10 minutes before, I couldn't for a while. So Lily, the reason you cannot hear the songs when we are on our video broadcast is because we need to turn the sound off. It's the Facebook copyright thing. Yeah. But if you want to hear the songs, you can go ahead and tune into our frequency. But this is what we're gonna have, not to have our video interrupted. We turn off the sound during the songs, so we apologize for this. But you can always listen to the songs if you tune in to the frequency. Yeah.
Oh, and I've got another news story, and actually it's another follow-up. So the Jussie Smollett thing that we talked about a few weeks ago.
He's exonerated.
No, and that's the other thing. I mean, things in the U.S. these days
Through
a lot of
community
times
service.
are so polarized and divisive that this won't end. This won't end anytime soon.
Oh, no.
Right? So the prosecutors, the lawyers that were supposed to be trying to prove that he was guilty of these 16 charges, of which probably only one or two of them were actually really serious. The rest of them were they were criminal charges, but they were kind of light. The prosecutors who were supposed to trying to prove him guilty in a court of law dropped all of the charges on the condition that he forfeit his $10,000 bail to the city and that he do some community service. Now the debate is going on whether or not this is normal, whether it's fair, whether it's because he's a celebrity. I think the biggest question is it normal? And that I haven't really gotten a good consensus of. There were some people that were saying, well, there was really only one of the charges that was very strong. And normally in a case like this, you could probably get the person to plead guilty to it for, say, probation or a fine. And they wouldn't do any jail time. But Smollett is insisting that he's innocent, so he didn't want to plead guilty to any of the charges. He wanted to go to trial, but the prosecutors dropped it. I don't know the details of the case that much, and in fact, a lot of people may not know the details of the case because they have been what's called sealed. So they are not open to the public. So anyone who hasn't already seen the details of the evidence and stuff, of the grand jury proceeding, of all that, won't be able to see it.
I feel sorry for this guy.
Yeah, I don't know, and it's crazy.
I feel sorry for him. I think that he's got privilege and he used it. in terms of celebrity. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, so the mayor, who has seen a lot of this information, and the police chief of Chicago, who kind of headed up the investigation, are really upset and saying this is not normal. This should have gone to trial. We are upset that the prosecutors dropped this, especially for so little amount as $10,000 bail and some community service. They have come out and requested that he pay, I think it's about $150,000 to offset the costs of the investigation into the case. And of course, Trump weighed in on Twitter and said that the Department of Justice and the FBI are going to look into this and see if it was proper and normal that the prosecutors dropped the charges. So this probably won't be over anytime soon. So this is another to be continued. I'm good with those, aren't I? I'm good with the news stories that are to be continued.
To be continued.
And actually, I have one also, which is to be kind of continued, because we mentioned about this lady earlier becoming the first lady diplomat in the world, Armenian origin.
What did she do now?
What did she do now?
She's still alive?
What did she do?
She's got to be old.
I don't think so.
No, I said, what did she do now? Like, pleasantly surprised. Not, what did she do now?
But
like when, when a parent gets a call from the police station. What did he do now?
What did he do now?
Am I in trouble? Okay. No, but before getting to that, we have a couple of more comments. Armine Pogosyan says, I also said thank you. Thanks to you. All job well done. Thank you, Zarmine. And also Lily Tovsepian says, thank you for explanation.
For why we have dead air sometimes.
Angela Ispiran says, hello, I'm here. So, hey, thank you guys for your feedback.
We're here too. Thank you for joining us.
Really, I need them.
Wow, people are watching us. Hi.
I always feel like somebody's watching me.
Oh, yeah.
We got to cue up that song next week.
So, an exhibition in Armenian Museum of America will be held to present a new expo with Adele and Haig. No, at the gallery of Adele and Haig der Manuelian, exploring the intertwined lives of diplomat Diana Abkar and artist Berjuhi Kailian. So how are these two ladies connected?
I love that name, Berjuhi, by the way.
Berjuhi. Berj means white, right? Berj. Right, yeah, white, I think so. The exhibition will open on April 24th, 2019 in recognition of Armenian Genocide Remembrance Day. According to the museum's website, the exhibition centers on the notion that individuals who take a stand can impact lives exponentially. Not many know of Diana Abkar. We spoke about her before, but I'm going to remind to our listeners, and the impact she had on shaping the discourse about the plight of Armenians during World War I. Acting as an unofficial diplomat, Diana tirelessly wrote letters, newspapers, articles, and books to create a network of support for Armenians throughout the world. Can you imagine? And in Japan, she provided food and shelter, helped with visas and travel documents, and negotiated with the steamship companies to unite Armenian refugees with relatives in the United States. So this is what she did for Berjuhi, Berj Kalyan, Berjuhi, short Berj. And so a survivor of Armenian genocide, Berj Kalyan fled from her home in Ottoman Turkey, strapped to her mother's back to Yerevan, present-day Armenia. Diana Abkar reached out to bring them to shelter in Yokohama. She arranged their passage on the Mexico Maru to sail to Seattle, Washington, where they made their way to join family.
That is one heck of a long journey.
Yeah. So Perchui became an artist and made paintings and prints, many of which recall her history as a refugee in an intuitive way. So this exhibition, don't miss this exhibition from 6 to 8:30 p.m. It's going to be held in this museum, and this exhibition will remind about the genocide and the victims, survivors, and individuals who chose to intervene. This was kind of long, but it was really interesting to know that these important people continue their work through expos. And we'll be back in a bit after the advertisement break. Stay tuned. This is the Great American Weekend.
Ina, what would make America great again?
More barbecue.
No, we need more freedom. That's what'll make it great.
Join us on Great American Weekend
and help us solve all of America's problems.
Every show is recorded by the NSA and sent to the White House.
Welcome back to the Great American Weekend.
Surprise, surprise, surprise.
We've got a special guest today live on the show. Here to speak with us is Minas Halajian, a fine artist, collagist from LA, in the studio today. And we're going to be talking about, in connection with the theme of our show today, roots.
Yeah, because you said from LA. He's visiting us from LA, but the story's more complicated than that.
This is true.
Roots again.
Well, hello everybody. My roots, I grew up here in this beautiful city, Yerevan. I was in Minas Art College, and then I transferred to university. Another 3 years later, I moved to the United States, 2002. Since 2002, I would say, in between Armenia and America,
Okay, so where did you study in the U.S.? You said you went to San Francisco?
San Francisco Art Institute. Okay. I studied there 3 years, and then I moved to Los Angeles because LA has that vibe, kind of a lean back and has more space to create. Actually, I was in New York, but it was too much for me. And you go to first time from Yerevan to city like Big Apple, like New York, it's too much happening. And as an artist, it's tough to survive over there, because you gotta,
Yeah, New York, you got to put in your time, like at least a decade, in order to actually start living, which is unfortunate because to make it a decade.
I prefer the artist life because my target was to do painting, to create, and to do some shows and.
So, well, from what I understand, you not only do you travel with your work, but you also go to different art fairs and shows. You were recently at Miami Art Basel.
Art Basel.
When you are in that space where you're seeing many people, different people, dealers, collectors, right. Potential people who take interest in your work, how do you identify yourself? What is it that you say about yourself or your work that kind of sets you apart or describes some of your roots? How would you say that to someone interested in your work?
In America, like you guys know, it's a lot of mix from different ethnicity, different people. So they see there is something different. I maybe a little bit look like Latin, but people asking, like, where are you from? Like your eyes are different and stuff like that. So the second question is like, I'm Armenian, and a lot of people people know us Armenia. So I'm starting to do like little history, and of course they know the genocide and stuff like that. So, and they see something different, which makes me great that I have that Armenian connection as an artist, like could be that style or something, different. That makes me more gets like different from the people.
Helps you stand out a little bit.
So I'm interested about me personally. I also I create collages. I paint photo illustrations and collages, and I'm always interested in other artists' processes and how they approach their work. I kind of gave myself a year to be in a studio to kind of commit myself in a way to rekindled that connection to fine art in me, having been in design for so many years. What is your process like? How do you treat how do you approach your work? How do you stay true to your work, in another word?
For me, I like to work at the studio. So the main definition is, working, connecting.
Yeah,
more
come a little closer
by myself
to the microphone. If you come a little closer.
If you lean in a little, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, for me, like I said, it's more work for me. I like to work at the studio. I work like maybe 8 to 10 hours. And, just finding all these, ideas that I like to put together at the studio. So for me, it's the work, what I do. And I believe, a little talent and more work, and you get, more viewers or like, people that they're going to start having conversation.
So 8 to 10 hours a day. Are we talking 5 days a week, like a regular job?
7 days,
7
sometimes.
days a week. And then I'm wondering, how do you have inspiration to be not just working, because a person can work that much, but you're not just working, you are creating. So where does the inspiration come from?
So, when I was young, the whole inspiration was coming from nature, from, stuff like that. But right now, my inspiration is Instagram. So I'm looking for interesting ideas and then starting to collage and mixing those ideas that the conflict people always have together. And sometimes, pretty much social medias.
So if you're sitting in the studio and all of a sudden you hit a block,
right?
You just pull out Instagram and start looking and smashing stuff together and see what comes out.
Yeah, because it's like doing collages. It's like being DJ, starting to mix with a little bit from Bach or Beethoven, put in some nice techno or house, or So it's the process, when you starting to go into that process, the things are just coming by themselves. So I don't even think about it,
Well, I like that analogy a lot.
That's for
doing collages is like being a DJ.
Yeah,
that's great.
Pretty much. And what I like about the collages, I go to flea markets and auction houses. I like to buy stuff that's vintage or antique. I like to cut and bring it to the modern day, to the 21st century, because all those items are, classical, and people, even though they don't use it anymore, they like to throw it away. So I go and buy and just mix a little bit classic, a little bit modern idea with that, and makes interesting mix.
Oh, cool.
For me,
yeah, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Minasjan, when do you realize that the specific piece of art is finished?
Well, that's a tough question, but I will say, the art that I do, it's never get finished. It's always the process. It's always even though sometimes I like to, I think, I finished this painting and I, flipping in a studio or putting somewhere else that I don't see a couple of days. And then taking one day and then starting to, destroy the painting. So it's the process. But sometimes I like to leave it the way it is.
So there's a destruction and construction,
yes,
creativity and deconstruction. That's interesting.
So that makes more balance the painting.
Thank you.
So I have two parts to me of my own identity and roots, my Armenian roots, and then where I was born and raised in the States. And for me, as a fine artist, in terms of collage as well, I had a real love affair with the works of Robert Rauschenberg and how he approached, kind of as an outsider, entering into this realm of fine art, combining silk screening and photography and painting and assemblages with objects. And when I then learned about, because I didn't really have exposure to Parajanov, I was just amazed with the sensitivity and the depth with which Parajanov had the ability to construct using, like you were saying, old images like repeated Mona Lisas in a way, and creating a totally new work of art. Who would be some of your influences in terms of your own art upbringing?
I have so many, but those days I like our ancient manuscripts, like those Khachkars that you see in nature that is left over and has a beautiful patina, has those textures, crocs, and I was thinking the other day I was in up north, and I was thinking if I can bring this to my art, these textures, that will be amazing, because you don't see these type of things in worldwide. I mean, it's very unique, it's Armenian roots.
I've always thought
Khachkars,
Yeah, absolutely. I always loved the lace that they could create out of stone, and I always imagined somehow taking a relief or some imprint of it in order to use on a printing press to make this impression on a page somehow, and then using that into fine art. It's so beautiful. You want to kind of take a small piece of that to remind people that this exists still.
But like take a piece, but not like exactly the way it is. Like as a spiritual as is texture wise. My works are more figurative, and they have layers. If you look at it, it will be like almost a type of a 3D. I use cloths, pans, all kinds of recycled stuff. And also at the end, I do the painting part, which is I was saying like, that's the salt and pepper process. When you cook in like in a soup or something, or a steak, the most final thing is the process of to put those
spices,
the spices. And which is, I think each person has his own way of using it, and makes unique that the way you do it.
And we need to go on a little break. It's a music break. Dance with My Father, a song by Luther Vandross. Speaking of fatherland and motherland, we'll be back soon and continue with Minas. Stay tuned.
I would never live in America.
Why not? Didn't you enjoy your time there?
Yeah, why not?
It was good, but it wasn't great.
Because you didn't know us when you were there.
Join Ina MK, Master Steve, and HazvaQT for a great American experience.
Every Saturday on the Great American Weekend.
We're back in our studio with our very special guest, Minas Halajian, artist, who's gonna travel back home tomorrow. So thank you for finding your time and being here with us tonight.
It was my pleasure. It was really lovely to be here.
And I hope you're feeling comfortable there on the red couch. Yes. Now, some more questions for you. What do you miss the most about Armenia when you're not here? Lilit Babayan asks in the comments.
A lot of things. First of all, but the main things, friends, the city, the weather. We have 24/7 sun in LA. So when you come here, it's like more, interesting that you see different, there is rain coming, the snow coming.
Yeah, I was just going to say this morning we had a little bit of snow.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought
welcome to Christmas.
By all standards, spring has started, and we still had some snow today. And you're from LA, and you're loving it.
Yeah. I was like thinking it's Christmas. Like we need to put the Christmas tree on.
Nice.
But yeah.
So I shared in the comments on the live feed one of your paintings, and I just would like you to talk about it a little bit. It's part of a series that you're working on?
This latest series, I call it Floral Minds, and there is some flowers. You'll see there is a person, but it's covered with flowers. Mm-hmm. And the idea is sometimes in the world that we are so busy and we are doing our own things, and we not noticing, like, there is another person that lives inside of us.
Mm-hmm.
We go more deeper than the flowers, in my position. In this case, the flowers are coming in, there is type of a blooming that's happening.
And for those of you who are watching us right now, you can see one of the works by Minas right there in the cam, shown by Aramast. Okay, keep going.
Just a little bit about how you put that piece together. You work with what parts of it are what? You do painting and collage.
Yeah, both of them at the same time. I work on a panel, on a wooden panel, like on those Renaissance period, those masters were working on panel. And so, like I said, these paintings are mixed media. I mix with vintage textiles, recycled materials mostly. And at the end, I do some paintings, let's say the details, and eventually I go from the surface. All of them are painted, but I like to glue it, and I like to, applique things, the materials, and it makes more interesting. It's almost like a live type of things coming,
Yeah, I was just in Amsterdam for a few days, and so I went to the Van Gogh Museum and the Rijksmuseum. I love Rembrandt, and especially with somebody like Van Gogh, seeing the pieces on your computer screen is totally different than seeing them in person. And I feel like looking at your paintings here on the computer screen that there is definitely something missing.
The energy.
Well, the energy, but also just the texture, right? Because there's collage and there's paint, and it's oil paint, wax, textile, mixed media on panel. So there's stuff sticking out. God forbid anyone should touch it, but if they were to touch it, there would be something to feel. It would be
you will feel the texture, and at the end I do beeswaxing. So if there is any water or any damage, it's not going to damage the
okay.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Like in live, it's almost like a 3D. If you look at it in a corner, these things are popping out, the textures, the little details that I like to cut and replace.
Okay. Nice.
I'm curious about the quality of like when you have work that you're interested to market and to sell. Part of the common conception or misconception about being a fine artist in our modern day is that to make a living you have to kind of struggle and strife, and there's this cliche about the starving artist. I wanted to know about what your transformation was, or what your journey was through struggle, if there was, and how you got to a place where you could consistently make a living off of your creativity and your artwork.
Well, at the beginning, it was so tough. It was so hard. Like, whatever door I was knocking and whatever, places I was going, I was, talking about art with friends and stuff like that. When I had this recent series, it made my name out there because people saying like this is something new that they like to collect, that they like to do some merchandise or like T-shirts. Limited editions. Recently, I do, but at the beginning, it was tough. I was working as a classical medium. I was trying to bring a European art with a new feeling, but it was not happening. I was always down, and I was like, what I need to do. I need to come up with something new that people, in America, everything is seen. People are very like, they know art, the crowd that I'm hanging out, especially the galleries. And so basically the galleries like to have a type of your signature, like everybody's making coffee, but what is your coffee special? What is your, I don't want to say like a brand, but at the end, it's a branding type of a thing that, So I come up with this flower, 8 years ago, and nobody was doing this idea. I said again, it came from Instagram. I was searching things, and I was like, one day I said maybe I should, these people are so beautiful. they talk about different things, fashion, this and that. Maybe I should cover everything, the faces, the, so that's why I came up with this Floral Mind series, this flower thing. But again, if the work is the main thing, being as a studio artist is very tough. You see the picture all the time. You don't see nothing else. So it's all your mind and everything, all your energy. It's on the surface. Like, how should I do? What should I do? Is this the right way, the right direction I'm going, or should I change it, or should I raise it? There's a lot of questions, but finally, I just said, I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna see, what is people are thinking. So when I moved to United States, it was the toughest moment for my life. I was half homeless, didn't have a place to stay, no friends, nobody. I was hanging out in Brooklyn, Bronx, and it was so hard, man. But I said, either I'm making it or either I'm breaking it,
And you did it.
But yeah, it's the work, I consider it is when you pursue your, the idea that you have in your mind, and one day it's gonna bloom. It's gonna come up to you.
And you've been doing it for a decade and a half, so you must be doing something right.
It's been I was in a couple of the universities are so great, the Armenian college here that I went, or Lemesian, the academy, but they were teaching me the most, a lot of classical art. And when I went to America, with that classical art, you're not gonna go nowhere. It's just a knowledge, just the alphabet. But after the alphabet, you have to erase the alphabet. You have to forget what you learned.
Start learning words and then
you have
phrases.
To just come out with your ideas, with your way of seeing the world.
Minas Jan, thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you, guys.
Time flew by so fast. I bet we had lots of questions.
It looked like we're here 5 minutes.
Yeah. Exactly.
I have another question still.
Me too.
All of us have questions.
And we'll ask them after the show, and our audience will not get to participate.
And thanks for being with us.
It was lovely to be here. It was fantastic.
Thanks.
I have this beautiful energy.
So hope you have a safe flight home, and we hope that you will come back. And as your last words to our show, since it's dedicated to the roots, what is roots to you?
The roots is who you are, it's everything for me. I consider myself Armenian American, but main is Armenian. I love my country. I love, the atmosphere, the environment, everything, I miss every day when I'm going back to LA after a couple of weeks. I'm starting to be different. I need to do something, or let's plan another visit to homeland.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your answer, and I bet Armenia loves you back. Hopefully you'll come back here soon. Stay tuned. We have another 10 minutes to go with our show with local upcoming events. So do not leave us for now. We'll be back after advertisement break.
Oh, say, can you see?
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed?
Adamast, what are you doing?
He's trying not to forget where he came from.
And we're back, and we enjoyed our interesting guest, and we wish we had a longer time to...
We always want to be longer with all of you. We just want to be there, and we just want to stay with you. And
in fact, sometimes after we go off air, the three of us just sit here and talk into the microphones for an hour. And unfortunately, no, we don't.
Hoping
we do it before the show.
We do it before, yeah.
Okay, you guys want to start with calendar of events? So let's start with Yerevan American Corner events.
Yeah, so every week at the Yerevan American Corner, they've got the Improve Your English Language Skills Friday, and they've got a debate at 4 o'clock with Jim Daly. This week, the debate topic is lifestyle choices. So for those of you that have intermediate or higher levels of English, show up for that. Practice, improve.
Master Steve. And after enjoying Master Steve on Saturdays, you can go ahead and enjoy Jim Daly every
I'm tempted
Friday.
to stop in on one of these debates. I like debates.
Yeah,
and
let's check out and see what it is.
Yeah.
No, so Reading Club. Every Monday at 3 p.m., there is Reading Club. And this week they will read an excerpt.
Excerpt
from
Excerpt.
You're ruining my pronunciation skills.
Excerpt.
Excerpt
from the Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas.
I'm hoping it's just an excerpt. Have you guys seen the size of that book?
Yeah.
Dumas just never ends.
Yeah, true. Just
Discuss
like
the
Tolstoy.
key points of the story, because
that'll take us a whole week.
It will take 5 or 10 minutes. Okay, and what comes next, Steve?
So so the Reading Club, Count of Monte Cristo, is Monday at 3 p.m. And then again, every Friday at 3 p.m., we've got the Teenage Club.
And
the American Corner in Yerevan invites teenagers to come in and visit, improve their English by practicing talking about American culture and lifestyle with games, discussions, grouped activities, and tons of fun.
Woohoo! Sounds like fun.
Ooh, City Central Library. I want to go. Well, not to the
it's
Teenage
not far
Club, but
from
just
here,
to the
actually.
library. Oh, cool. Can I do the movies?
Yes, and there are also events at Gyumri, Vanadzor, Charensavan, and Kapan, American corners. So for more information, you can call or visit.
We've got 1, 2, 3, 4. We've got 5 American corners in Armenia.
And that
it's
is
not
really
a square
cool.
room.
That's a pentagon.
Yeah, it's a pentagon.
That's a sign. The CIA is still listening. The NSA is still listening. Shh.
Don't listen to Aramast. Listen to
the CIA,
the website.
Propaganda.
You don't have to listen to the CIA.
Proper
because they're listening to you.
I know.
AmericanCorners.am. Visit or call to find out more on all of this above mentioned events. And Aramast is now going to present movies.
The movies.
In English.
Do you know what I want to say? But before I do the movies, though, proper propaganda.
Yeah.
Proper propaganda.
Yeah, we love that. Proper.
All right,
Okay,
I'm going to do the movies in English in a Russian accent. So, movies in English at Kino Park, because most movies in Armenia, even in English, have Russian subtitles, just to remind you from where it is that we have given you your independent country. So, March 30th to April 3rd, 2 movies in English. Dumbo at 5 p.m. Can't wait to see it. And for horror genre lovers, Us is at 8:05 p.m. and 11:35 p.m. And again, we have Russian subtitles all over your English language speaking original soundtrack movies.
Thank you. We're almost out of time, so we need to hurry up. Okay, music.
That takes time to say.
April 4th, starting at 9:30, Gor Sujan is at Comic Music Club performing live. For opera and ballet lovers, April 4th, 7 p.m., The Magic Flute by Mozart, music by Mozart, opera in 2 acts at the Opera and Ballet House. Also, April 6th, 7 p.m., Carmen Suite, ballet in 1 act, Lorquiana, Spanish folk music, and Chopiniana, ballet in 1 act at Opera and Ballet House. Also, there are some parties going on March 29th, starting at 10 p.m. Techno music. DJs Nancy Moffs and Gamavosian with their cool creative sets at the embassy. So not at a certain embassy.
Not at the American embassy or the British embassy.
Yeah.
There is a
club
called Embassy.
Okay.
You don't need to make an appointment.
No appointments.
To this embassy.
Just go there straight forward.
You don't need your passport. You don't need your financial records. You don't need a visa.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen, for clarifying this. Also, April 1st at 8 p.m., there is Time for Magic at Hugo Bar and Restaurant. I heard that this is going to be a really cool event, so make sure you save your seats because there's always packed there.
Give them a call and make those reservations.
Right. Also, theaters. There is April 6th at 7 p.m. Jonathan Livingston with Seagull at Smart Theater.
Seagull. That's a great play.
Yeah. Thank you so much, guys, for being with us tonight. We apologize for some technical issues that we had in between, but things happen.
It's live. It's live.
Shit happens. We forgot to curse.
We didn't curse. I think
we forgot
the
to
Beatnik
curse.
episode used up
all of our
entire
cuss words.
of cuss words.
Not for me.
For this year.
And this
Not
is
for fucking me.
This is live, and this is a live show, so some things can happen. But the best thing about us that we are a team. We're always a team, and we always support each other.
And we just keep pushing on through.
Thank you guys for listening, and have a great American weekend. See you next week.
Have a great American weekend. Have an awesome Saturday night. See you guys next week on a must.
And if you didn't catch the whole show tonight, you can pick it up on the Radio Von website later this week.
Yeah, you can surely do that. And be safe. Bye-bye.